Good morning. Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Our text for this morning comes from Isaiah chapter 2. And I'll pop it up on the screen here in a little bit. And as I read it, you're going to notice there are three different sections in the first five verses that will be a different color. Now, those are the three sections that we're going to be focused on today. So please follow along with me in your minds as I read. This is what Isaiah, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Many peoples will say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." There it is. "He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Come, descendants of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the Lord." It was a dark, dark day in the linguist world a couple of weeks ago, when the people at Oxford Dictionary revealed their annual Word of the Year for 2015. This word was chosen over any other word because it had more significance culturally and socially than anything else. This word was chosen over any other word because it was more widely used on a global scale than any other word in the last 12 months. This word was chosen because the rate of use increased in the last 12 months more than any other word besides it. The Oxford Dictionary 2015 Word of the Year is this. I thought it was a joke at first, too. Yes, the good people at Oxford Dictionary decided that the tears of joy emoji would be the word of the year. The word of the year is not even a word at all. Yet it is a symbol for a sometimes sad truth that things change. Words and the definitions of those words come and go. Relationships change for the better or the worse. Emotions and feelings change on a day-to-day basis. Champions just take their turns. Everything changes. We are surrounded by it all the time. Everything changes except for one thing: Christ and his word have always been there, they will always be there, and it will never change, and it will never give up that elite status. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountain. That phrase, "in the last days," that's referring to the time between when Jesus came as a baby the first time and when he will come again the second time on Judgment Day. So right now, we are in the last days. We are part of the last days. And what's happening right now? The mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest. Now, Isaiah uses this phrase, the mountain of the Lord's temple, because the Israelites would have known that, would have been familiar with that. They knew what the temple looked like. They had been there. they experienced it, and they also would have known that the temple was built on top of a rocky hill, a little bit higher than everything else, to establish it as the most important, to establish it as higher than anything else, than any other authority. This mountain still exists today, this temple still exists today, but not as a physical building, not as a physical temple, but as a spiritual group. That temple on the Lord's mountain today is that capital C church, in which you and I are members. And that word that comes out from that church is set apart, is set higher than any other authority here in these last days. So Isaiah gave the Israelites a picture of that temple on the hill. We also have a picture in our minds as we think of mountains. So your picture might look something like what's up on the screen right now. And I have a problem when I look at that picture because I can see the peak. I can see what's the highest. I can see what's the most prominent, what's the biggest. But I also see something that's very distant, that's very cold, that is not very relevant to my life right now. I see something that I can't apply to what I go through day in and day out. So I tend to look at what's a little bit closer. I look at this first mountain and I say, well, what about my knowledge? What about the things that I know? What about the things that I have learned? And that is what sometimes I put my faith in. And what I think will get me through, what I know and what I have learned through my schooling and through my teaching. And certainly if my knowledge fails me, I've always got technology. I think of the ridiculous advances that we've made in the last 10 years in technology and the advances that we continue to make on a day-to-day basis, and I can put my trust and my hope in that. If that doesn't work, I can always scamper over to the next mountain, and I can put my faith in my nation and its leaders, or at least hopefully the potential leaders will do better in my own mind. And the military, and the strength of my nation's military. That's what will give me peace. That's what will give me security. That is what I need in my life. And if my nation's military fails me, and if its leaders fail me, I can at least fall back on the past achievements of my nation, or the past achievements that I have made through my own knowledge. And finally, if all those mountains crumble underneath my feet, my family won't desert me. My wife and my kids, and my parents and my brothers, they will be there even if everybody else leaves. Right? But you know what the problem is? Each and every one of these 5 aspects up here in my life will, at one point, change. At one point, they will crumble. At one point, they will rot. At one point, they won't work. At one point, they will disappoint. And the same is true for your lives. So what else can we do but take all those away and focus on that highest point? Focus on that solid, never-changing rock of God and His Word. Words like, I will never leave you, even if everybody else does. Words like, I forgive you again and again and again. Words like, I am right now preparing a place for you in heaven. Words like this, nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. And this is not speaking about an earthly peace. In fact, God talks about that in Matthew chapter 24. He says, nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And again, in Mark chapter 13, when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Such things must happen. Unfortunately, many people take these words out of context. And they think that it is talking about an earthly peace. Consider this mural across the street from the United Nations building in New York City. They quote these very words of Isaiah. And as pure as the UN's motives might be, I hate to say that their ultimate goal of earthly, worldly peace will never happen. So if it's not talking about worldly peace, it must be talking about spiritual peace, and it is. The nations that section in Isaiah refers to is the nation of believers. The nation of those who have come to faith will experience a peace, but it's a peace that the world can't give. It's that peace of forgiveness assured. And because we have that peace from Christ, as a nation of believers, we will experience some earthly peace with the other believers as well. For we are all descendants of Jacob in the spiritual sense. And as descendants of Jacob, we are called to come and walk in the light of the Lord. When I read that, when I see those words, I can't help but think of the beautiful 1989 movie, Field of Dreams. For those of you who aren't familiar, Kevin Costner plays a broke Iowa farmer. He does anything he can to try to save his farm and going into bankruptcy. And he starts to hear these voices, and the voices become the theme of the movie, which you see on the screen. If you build it, they will come. So he listens to those voices, and he believes those voices, and eventually he builds a baseball field in the middle of his cornfield. And he hopes that people will come from all over the nation to the middle of nowhere, Iowa, and pay their admission fee to come and see the old-timey baseball players continue their game and eventually save his farm. You have a similar message in Isaiah. Christ has built it. It is established. We, as believers, as descendants of Jacob, are part of those last days. We are part of that mountain of the Lord's temple. And then we are called then to bring those people in. Things will continue to change. Make no doubt about that. Words of the year, I guess, are now emojis. But may we stand on that never-changing rock of God and His Word and shout from that mountaintop so that others may join us in the light. Amen. We'll sing hymn 471. join me in prayer? Our Father who reigns above and will come again, forgive us for the times when we put our faith and our trust in anything or anybody other than you. Help us to focus ourselves on your never-changing mountain where we hear your beautiful gospel words of promise. Embolden us then to shout your praises from that mountaintop and use us to bring others to your everlasting light. Amen. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. The Lord look on you with favor and grant you his peace. Amen.